Last but not least, we are going to Happy Valley. Penn State hosts West Virginia, a renewed rivalry. Look, as we said at the top, I'm just not sure there's the correct words I can really figure out right now to describe the excitement for us. I'm sure the students feel the same way. A primetime game, a night game to start their season. It's going to be a packed house at Beaver Stadium, 7:30. NBC will have all the coverage. We've got pregame coverage as well, led by Maria Taylor and company. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's a rivalry that dates back to 1904. Haven't played since 1992. So the renewing of it is going to feel different. Penn State leads the all-time series pretty handedly, 48-9-2. West Virginia hasn't won since 88. West Virginia, we could get into them a little bit here. Neil Brown's on the hot seat. I think it's pretty clear. And Neil has been there now a couple of years. They've won either 5 or 6 games every single year, and that's been pretty much it. They've been right in the middle every single year, either a bowl team or just missing a bowl eligibility. Is there anything that you see out of West Virginia that they can really make this a fun game, a fun matchup, and more importantly for them, a memorable season to keep Neil Brown there long term?
Well, I think the biggest thing that they have going for them and that they're going to absolutely have to have in this game, I think they can run the football. You know, they've got their whole offensive line back, led by their center, who's an All-American, Zach Frazier. C.J. Donaldson last year started the year. He was not even a full-time running back, but he's legit. I mean, he's a real guy, you know, and he's big, he's physical, he can make people miss. You know, he didn't play a whole season, didn't have a ton of carries last year. He'll be the feature guy, but they've got some depth behind him. They've got to run the football. They've got to keep their defense off the field because last year the defense was the Achilles heel. This is an offense that scored over 30 points a game, and yet their defense gave up even more a game. So I don't know that they've overnight improved their defense. They got to protect them a little bit. And the best way to protect them, particularly on the road in a hostile environment, is if you can run the football. Garrett Green, the starting quarterback, played well, I thought, the last 3 games. You know, they beat Oklahoma and they beat Oklahoma State and lost to the Big 12 champion Kansas State the last 3 games. But he did a lot of good things. He's a good runner. He's good with the RPO game. It'll be interesting to see if the offense looks exactly the same since Graham Harrell left to go to Purdue, but they promoted from within. Chad Scott, I think, is the new offensive coordinator, was the running back coach. So I think running the football and then hoping to hit some shots in the play action game, but keep Penn State's offense off the field. If you can run it, you can take the crowd out of it a little bit, but it's not easy. It's not going to be an easy challenge. Penn State's a really good football team. There's a lot of hype and a lot of expectation. And West Virginia's schedule, not only do they play them and renew a rivalry, they play Pittsburgh again. They renewed that rivalry last year, the backyard brawl, and so that'll be a tough one for them. And then early in their Big 12 schedule, I think they've got Texas Tech right out of the gate, who is going to be a really good football team with Joey McGuire. So not an easy situation for Neil Brown, but we'll see what they got in week 1.
Yeah, running the football, not just to keep the defense off the field, not just to protect potentially a new starting quarterback, whoever it may be, if it is Garrett Green or Nico Marchiol, but the fact that they've lost most of their weapons on the outside. Bryce Ford Wheaton off to the NFL. Caden Prathers transferred to Maryland. He had a stellar season last year. So it'll be interesting to see who could emerge for them offensively for sure. You mentioned the expectations in State College right now. Similar to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, a lot of people could really, I guess, are assuming or believing that this could be James Franklin's most talented team in his decade now run as the head coach over at Penn State. It's remarkable what he's done in the modern day of college football with NIL and transfer portal and everything to keep his most important positions on the team, and most specifically quarterback, because he's essentially had 3 starting quarterbacks over the course of 10 years. It started with Christian Hackenberg. It went to Trace McSorley, and then, of course, Sean Clifford, who was just, it felt like almost underrated in how consistently solid he was for them every single year. And last year, another 11-win season, a Rose Bowl victory over Utah. So they return a lot of the pieces that they had from a really good football team, and you slide in this highly touted recruit in Drew Aller. In theory, we're assuming he's guaranteeing to start in all likelihood, he's going to start for this
Yeah.
team in highly likelihood. And so Drew Aller comes in there, and I went back because I did that last game of the year last year, Penn State, Michigan State, the Black Friday game. And I went back and looked at the notes that I had from the meetings with James Franklin and some coordinators and some coaches. And they all said that the happiest thing, or the thing that I guess brought them the most solace coming into this season with Drew, was that they got him real live reps in almost every single game last year. And a lot of that had to do with how good Manny Diaz's defense was in allowing for Penn State to protect some big leads. A lot of that had to do with how good Sean Clifford was in helping to build the big leads. But they said Sean was good about helping to kind of raise him and his knowledge of the offense and how to lead the team. But more importantly, and you know this as a former quarterback yourself, getting live reps almost every single week is massive in the development of a young QB.
Yeah, absolutely. And, first of all, before I break Penn State down a little bit more, by the way, of those three quarterbacks, Trace McSorley's still in the NFL, and Sean Clifford has now been named the backup quarterback in Green Bay. So not only two guys that played a lot of games at Penn State, but they also are really good, talented guys. And now here comes Drew Aller, who is the most highly decorated, highly recruited quarterback that they've had there in a long, long time. Probably since Kerry Collins, I would guess, But anyway, he's very talented. He's big. He's athletic. He was a multi-sport, three-sport guy in high school. All kind of arm talent. He seems like he has the right temperament, the right approach. He's got the right humility. He wants to be coached. He wants to be great. And I thought it was brilliant that not only did they play him in a lot of games last year, but they traveled him. He got the feel for, going on the road, like a business trip, sitting in the meetings, the pregame stuff. Everything he was exposed to will help him now as he steps into the starting role. But it will still be different. It'll still be different when the bright lights are on Saturday night and he's the guy and it's his game. I went back and watched all of his plays from last season, and he shows flashes. I mean, even though most of his time was in mop-up duty, they still let him throw, and you could see he's got talent. The best thing going for Drew Aller right now is Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, okay? The fact that they've got a running game that is legit. Two guys who are outstanding players, will both be sophomores, looking to take the next step in their development. Probably the best, not only the most talent James has had, probably the best offensive line that they've had in James Franklin's tenure here. So Drew can lean into that running game. And I think that's going to be really important for two reasons. It's a good way to take pressure off a young quarterback, but also the one question mark for Penn State a little bit, kind of like Michigan, is who emerges on the outside as wide receivers. They lost their top two guys from a year ago. They've got to have some other guys step up and take on bigger roles at the wide receiver position. But they've got the running game, and I think Manny Diaz's defense will be outstanding this year. Last year they got humiliated and humbled up in Ann Arbor when they gave up over 400 yards rushing. And a lot of that was missed assignments, guys trying to do too much, getting out of character, and they got exposed and they got gashed. But after that game, I thought their defense played exceptionally better down the stretch. And, in that game against Utah, they gave up some yards and points in the first half and then shut them down in the second half. So, again, second year for Manny Diaz, second year in the system. They've got some outstanding players at each level of their defense. I mean, all-star caliber, NFL caliber players at each level of their defense. And so, and they've got depth on defense. So for a young quarterback, you've got a running game you can lean into and a defense that's going to keep you in every football game. So you don't have to go out there and be a star and make every throw and every play in order for your team to have a chance to win. So Penn State's in a really good position, I think. Here's the only caution I have, and I'm going to say it in our very first inaugural podcast on the Big Ten Talk. Everybody says, okay, they've got to beat Ohio State and Michigan. Got to beat Ohio State and Michigan. James is 4-14 against Ohio State and Michigan. They don't have to beat both of them. They have to beat one of them to be in the position that they want to be in, whether they make it to Indianapolis or not, to still have a shot to be in the playoff. But all the focus is on those two games. I'm going to give you one game that if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm concerned about. Week 3 going to Champaign against
Mm,
Brett Bielema's Illinois team. And because Illinois plays a brand of football that Penn State traditionally has struggled with a little bit, and that's that physical Michigan style, pound the football, slow the game down, hard nosed defense. And Illinois has played Penn State tough historically. So I think Brett has done a great job there. And that will be a game that they'll be ready. They'll be amped up to play and to host Penn State. And so I think you can't have eyes too far down on Ohio State and Michigan. That Illinois game is going to be a challenge for Penn State.
yeah, it's smart. The fact, by the way, that Abdul Carter, Singleton, and Allen were as good as they were all last year as freshmen it was almost like found money. Not to just be good players, but to be stars basically the second they stepped on campus. We'll see how they develop now in year 2, but it's a good point, and I think it trips a lot of teams up. Let's put it that way. And certainly with a young and inexperienced quarterback compared to what they have, they're going to need someone who can lead them. And I think James Franklin is up for the challenge.